Hi everyone, and welcome to this potted version of emotional immunity, how stress and emotions affect the immune system. So a lot of people think that emotions, moods, feelings, states of mind are somehow reserved to the mind or to the head. But what we're going to see here is that everything we think actually has a biological effect that goes throughout the whole body and sets certain systems in motion. And this can serve to connect thoughts and emotions with actual health outcomes. So that's what we're going to have a look at right now. So I'm going to share my screen and bring up these slides. So what is stress? We tend to think that stress is something that is negative or detrimental, but actually there are two types of stress. The stress that we all kind of think about is distress, right? The sort of, oh, I'm feeling not so good today, or I'm feeling anxious. But we also have another form of stress called eustress, and that EU is the same prefix that goes with euphoria, right? A state of joy. So if you think about a time when you were really excited about something wonderful happening in your life, maybe your birthday party as a kid or something, and you were so excited, what happens? You get butterflies, the breath gets a little shallow and tight, and your heart rate goes up a little bit. Well, those are the same biological processes that go with anxiety, right? We also get the sort of shortness of breath, the queasy feeling in the stomach. So biologically, eustress, which is joy and excitement, are the same as distress, right? So in the terms of what's happening in the body. So we can look at this sort of arc or this spectrum where we go from a very calm state to a state of just sort of being on your game and being mobilized and ready for action. And then that system can go further and further up the scale until we get into that sort of distress state. And the difference is in the body is that when we're in the distress state, we actually produce more chemicals that can have a detrimental effect on certain body systems or body tissues. Whereas when we're in that eustress state, it doesn't produce so many of those sorts of chemicals in the body. So it's less biologically expensive. So we're going to have a look at that distress end of the scale. And what we're looking at here is a branch of our nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system. And most people know this as the fight or flight mechanism. But bear in mind, it's just a system of mobilization. It's what gets you out of bed in the morning. Okay, if we didn't have a kick of our sympathetic nervous system, we wouldn't be able to get on task and do the things we need to do in a day. It's only at the extreme end of it that it turns into this more fight or flight mechanism. And this is a primitive system that was designed to keep us safe in the event of mortal threat, right? When we were under attack by a predator, we need to mount a system that allows us to either fight the predator or to run away very quickly. So what happens is we have a sort of alert cascade that goes on. Our senses, that's our smell, hearing, sight, taste, we can read our environment, and the brain's going to take in this information and decide whether we're safe or unsafe. If we're detecting some sort of physical threat, i.e. a predator approaching, or these days, we're more likely to experience a more psychological threat. So that might be somebody who is stressing us out, but it equally might just be ourselves, what I call our own mind monkeys, right? Chattering away. Oh, didn't get that done today. Oh, not good enough. Should do better. That is a predator in the same way that an external one is, or the body reads it that way. So when we're in the face of this threat, the brain is going to initiate a stress response, and it's going to use that sympathetic nervous system to mediate that response and get us ready to either get out of dodge really quick or mount some sort of defense. So these are some of the things that happen when we're in that sympathetic dominant state. The heart rate's going to go up, which means your blood pressure goes up. Your muscles get tense so that you're ready to run or fight. Your immune system, remember this is what we're looking at today, the immune system is suppressed. So things in our body, lots of systems in our body require energy to run, right? If you think of your body as having a battery life and you've got lots of apps running that are pulling energy from that battery. The immune system is quite expensive on your battery life. So when we're in a case of threat, we want to divert all the energy resources to the immediate situation. And so we're going to switch off all non-essential activities. And the immune system falls into that bucket. So we tend to switch that off. Basically, the body doesn't really worry about whether you're going to fight that cold if you're about to get attacked by a bear, right? This is the priority. Let's deal with this first. We'll deal with the cold later. All our senses are heightened, and that includes pain. Pain is just another sense. Our senses go up so that we can read the environment, and pain kind of gets amplified in the same way on that same system, which is why some of those old grumbly problems that you might have in your body suddenly come to the surface when you are stressed. Inflammation is increased, and this is a big issue because this is part of the destructive chemistry that can start to cause problems in our body. Inflammation is part of our defense response. If you're about to get attacked by a predator, you might get an open wound from that. So the body produces some inflammatory chemicals in order that they're there just in case we need to mend a wound. But typically we're not being attacked by a predator, we're attacking ourselves. There's no wound to be fixed, so that inflammation can run unchecked in the body and go and cause trouble. Another thing that gets switched off, remember we need to conserve our battery life and divert those resources. Another thing that drags on our battery life is the digestive system. So that gets switched off. So this can explain why people have digestive discomfort associated with anxiety and stress. Our breath is going to get high and shallow, right? We start to kind of get into more of a panting mode of breathing. And sugar is going to be released into your bloodstream so that you've got immediate energy ready to run or fight. But again, if we're not doing that, if we're just sitting in our bedroom festering over something that's playing in our minds, that sugar is left unchecked in the bloodstream. And again, that can start to cause health issues for us. Sugar is highly corrosive to a lot of our blood vessels and organs in the body. So hopefully now we can start to see how this cascade of effects is going to affect health. So let's go and have a look at the other version of the system, the parasympathetic system. This is known as the rest and digest state. So when we're in this state, this is the state where our body can go about all normal business, and also that digestive system gets switched back on. Remember, when we're in the sympathetic state, it's switched off. So here are some of the things that happen in parasympathetic dominant mode. It's pretty much the reverse of what we just looked at. Heart rate and blood pressure can come down, muscles can relax, the breathing goes back to a normal pattern, the digestive system comes back online, and that's why we often hear a little gurgling sound in our stomach when we drop into a relaxed state. Also, growth and repair can take place. So remember, when we're in the sympathetic state, all the body's maintenance work is shut off. And we all know what happens when we don't keep up with the housework, right? Things start to go wrong. So this is where we can really get all the sort of essential things done in the body. So we really want to be hanging out here for the majority of our time. So let's have a look at that digestive system in particular, because the anxiety response, as we've seen, switches off digestion. So when we go into that sort of state, the saliva in our mouth gets switched off. That's part of digestion, right? Which is why you often get a dry mouth when you feel stressed. All the gastric juices go offline. Your absorption is decreased. So whatever you're putting into the system is not actually being absorbed into the body. If you're sort of in that immediate stress state, the body might want to eject any contents that are in the system, which is why we can feel queasy and nauseous when we're in this state. If you've got food already in the digestive tract, it basically gets stuck there, right? Because everything shuts down, the movement gets shut down, the absorption gets shut down. So essentially anything that's in the system is going to sit and it starts to rot and ferment, and that's going to release gases. This can lead to abdominal bloating, digestive discomfort. So you can start to maybe connect some of those digestive symptoms with the state of your nervous system. If you're up that sympathetic end, then these are the sorts of things you might be experiencing. So I always say it's not just what you eat. You can eat the most beautiful organic diet, but if it's not being processed and absorbed in the system, it's going to cause trouble. So we need to be very mindful of the emotional context in which we eat, not just what we are eating. So avoiding inflammatory foods is obviously good for our digestive health, but also equally important, if not more important, is eating in calm surroundings. Don't have the news on, turn your phone off, no distractions. Eating should be a ritual process. You need to allow time after eating for all that lovely food you've eaten to be absorbed. If you eat and run, you're going into that sympathetic mode. Even if you're not stressed, but you're just busy, digestive system goes offline. You're not going to get the benefit of those nutrients. Breathing techniques can be really, really useful to help open that system up, and we're going to have a little look at that. And avoid eating late at night. Food stays in your stomach for up to 4 hours after eating. If you go and lie down as soon as you've eaten, then again, and you go into sleep mode, digestion's not going to be online. You're not using gravity to help digest if you're lying down, and you're going to get issues with that. So inflammation, if you are not absorbing what you're eating and everything in that digestive tract is kind of festering, it's going to produce inflammation. Guess what? There's a little feedback loop, no pun intended there, from the digestive tract to the brain, which says we've got inflammation, therefore we're not safe. We've got an unsafe environment in our gut. Guess what the brain's going to do? Mount defense response, right? It's going to mount that sympathetic nervous system. So we can see how this can drive a loop that can get pretty tricky to break. So let's look at a little solution for this. Breathing, right? Might seem obvious, but breathing's pretty good for managing both digestion and our immune system. So when we breathe, a lot of people talk about breath work in this very kind of woo-woo sort of way. Oh, take a deep breath, you'll relax. But I'm going to show you here, there are tangible mechanical features of breath that actually change the physiology. So our diaphragm, which is that big domed muscle you can see there in the middle of the body, when we take a deep breath and we get a lovely downward expansive motion of that diaphragm, it actually massages the digestive tract. It's actually a mechanical part of our digestive process. It's going to help move food through the system. It's also going to help to bring that parasympathetic nervous system online. It helps take us into that rest and digest state. So it's really important to look at your breathing patterns around eating. Doing some breath work as you prepare your food is a great way to prepare the system to receive. And then if we look at breathing with our immune system, so again, that pumping action of the diaphragm is also a pump for something called our lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is part of our immune system. It's a circulatory system that sends all our lovely little immune antibodies and things around the body. We have lymph glands, right? Glands around our throat area and in various parts of our body that produce the cells of our immune system, and they run around the lymphatic system. It needs a good pump. So if you're in a shallow breathing mode, you're not pumping your lymphatic system either. Very, very important. Also, when we take a deep breath, we're actually going to allow our lungs to fully fill, right? So if we're only shallow breathing, we're only drawing air into the upper part of our lungs. Now, bear in mind, our lungs are always full of air. Even if you fully breathe out, there's still air in them, otherwise they collapse. But the air at the bottom, if you're not breathing deeply, doesn't exchange. So when we take a deep breath, that's why we often talk about a cleansing breath. When you take a deep breath, you draw the air all the way down and you clean house at the bottom of the lungs. We don't want dusty corners at the bottom of our lungs because they are a breeding ground for bacteria. So we're also, by increasing our breath intake, we're going to bring more oxygen into the system. We're going to increase our blood oxygen levels. And bacteria and all the sort of nasty gremlins that like to invade our bodies are actually, they don't do well in highly oxygenated environment. They actually don't like oxygen. So the more oxygenated we are, the less able those nasty bacteria are able to survive. So I think I've done a fairly good sales pitch there, haven't I, for good breath work for both your digestive system, the immune system, and for managing the nervous system. So here's a little technique just to finish off here for breathing for relaxation. So if you want to bring that digestive system online, if you want to prepare your body for sleep, if you have sleep issues, then this is a good little exercise to use. So what we need to do is make sure that when we breathe in, our abdomen is allowed to fully expand. When we allow our abdomen to expand, the diaphragm can make that full journey. If you pull your abs in, which we often do when we're stressed, then it blocks the movement of the diaphragm and we don't get such a full, juicy breath. So allow the abdomen to expand. And if we want to relax the body, the best way to do that is to have a breath cycle that your in-breath is half as long as your out breath. So if you breathe in for the count of 2, you breathe out to the count of 4. If you breathe in for 3, out for 6, and you can do any sort of version of that and make your breaths longer and longer, whatever's comfortable for you. But the exhale is what brings us into that parasympathetic state, the rest and digest state. So you want to be there for longer than the in-breath, which gives us a little more sympathetic dominance. Be sure to keep the shoulders and chest relaxed. So I always advise one hand on the abdomen, one hand on the chest, and you want the abdomen to be expanding and falling, not the chest to be rising and falling. So you can monitor that. So that's a great little technique to use before you eat, before you go to sleep, and just whenever you're feeling stressed in the day. Nobody even needs to know you're doing it. So I hope that's been a helpful little look at this relationship between our emotional states and our immune system and our general health. If you want to go a little deeper into this, then check out my longer version of this talk where we'll really unpack some of those concepts a little bit further.